Shabbat Shalom. This week, we arrive at some endpoints. We have finished Leviticus, closing the book on its priestly concerns, and we are at the end of counting the Omer. This upcoming week, we will reach number 49. The 49th day we have counted since we sat down at the second Seder, all the way back at the beginning of Passover. And this will usher in the final festival of the year 5780. Shavuot. I want you to take that in for a moment. I said 6 weeks ago that we count up and not down, and here we are, reaching our destination, an endpoint. But are we? Here is, for us today, the beginning of the book of Numbers. And this was a beginning I was both excited for, but also a little sad about. I was sad because more than ever before, I've leaned into my discomfort with Leviticus. And to be perfectly honest, my lack of familiarity with the book, since I'd always thought that it was dry, which you can read as boring, maybe anachronistic or worse, and lacking in narrative or maybe the low-hanging fruit that I sometimes rely on to give me a jumping off point or an entry point into the text. I'm not yet aware enough to know why this quarantine, this time of plague, has opened up a book that before its resonance and relevance had been elusive to me, but I'm hoping that will become clear with time. But I was also excited. Now, with Numbers, we return to narrative. We return to, or meet in earnest, the griping Israelites, or, to quote God, that stiff-necked people. We see their complaints, and this book dares us to empathize with their plight. As the book progresses, we see false prophets emerge, one after the other. And we get to see Moses in all of his greatness, the humility and emotional insights that defined his leadership, and we get to see, tragically, his downfall as well. So it was to my genuine disappointment that I read through this portion several times without anything jumping out at me. This portion begins by God having Moses count the Israelites for a census, so they will be ready militarily for when they cross into the land of Israel and will need to fight. It then proceeds to describe in great detail how the Israelites are to set up camp when they travel, the placement of the tabernacle, the place of each tribe relative to the tabernacle and relative to each other. Not exactly earth-shattering stuff. Not the return to stories that punctuate our lengthy discussions. But then an old friend opened the text for me, and it was not a classical sage like Rashi or Maimonides, but it was Ira Glass. I've long wanted or dreamed of Ira being aware of our This American Shabbat program. So Ira, if you're out there, show up for shul. And the rest of you, as he would say, stay with us. I went for a run and transitioned my focus from CRZ to WBZ. And just like Midrash, that collection of rabbinic literature that just as often answers a difficulty in the text than it answers a difficulty in the life of the reader, This American Shabbat episode came to me, and it was called Stuck. I know, right? There were different stories meditating on the idea of being stuck, ranging from the sad to the surreal. I recommend it, but its content matters not for us, except its voice give rise to mine. Our episode begins by stating that this census took place on the first day of the second month of the second year following the Exodus. So the Israelites have some distance, but slavery is still in their rearview mirror. The Israelites' psyche and their mindset, I think we can identify with. On the 70th day of our third month following the shelter in place, the end of our third month without each other, our days without physical contact with our community and family. We share much more with those Israelites. They could not have known that this was only the beginning for them. They were stuck, and they did not even know it. But I think that's the point, the meaningful place of movement, even if not in a progressive way. If you feel aimless, stuck, not only without direction, but without the ability to move, then meaning and growth become well beyond one's grasp, especially if you're like the Israelites and you reach for it strictly as individuals. So this is where we are, ending one form of counting for another. Yet this one, also, like the Israelites, we don't know what that final number will be. Today is the last day of the Hebrew month of Iyar, and tomorrow we will bring in the month of Sivan, a shift in season. Will it usher in the beginning of summer and lay to rest some of the fear that poured down with spring's rain or froze us with winter snow? Will we be able to trade raincoats for gym shoes in order to walk bravely forward as we continue our march through the corona wilderness? I'm not sure. I am neither doctor nor prophet, and to that I'm glad. But I hope we follow the leadership and guidance of Moses, who never turned to despair over all that he was losing and would go on to lose. I hope we see the Israelites incessantly complaining about all they had back in Egypt, and I hope that inspires us to broaden our perspective rather than diminishing it. It is impossible to know when our wandering will end, but I do know that its experiences and its losses, its fear and the hopeless moments, as well as the beauty it casts on our lives, will travel on with us when we get to cross the river of vaccination. Let us not be Israelites, lowering ourselves to the smallest among us, but elevate ourselves to the Jewish vision of being a sacred community that strives for the divine together. And in that quest, we all matter. We all count. Shabbat Shalom.